The Crimson Vengeance of Clara Vale. Shadows behind the glass. The diner, the Lonely Spoon, resembled an old scar, crusted with rust and dust. Its grease-smeared windows reflected only decay. Clara Vale, 22 years old, wore a dress that had once been white, but now faded to gray from endless washes. She seemed part of the diner's decline. Her hands, marked by tiny burns and knife scars, trembled as she poured coffee. Patrons whispered that she looked like a ghost, too pale, too silent. But no one asked why. She hated mirrors. In them, she saw not herself, but the shadow of her mother, a woman who vanished one night, leaving behind lipstick stains and the stench of cheap wine. Clara fled to Blackwater Creek to forget. But the town, where even the air reeked of rot and lies, became her coffin. Dance with Demons. That night, rain drummed on the roof like 1,000 tapping fingers. Jared, Mac, and Boyd stumbled into the diner, reeking of whiskey and malice. Jared, his face pockmarked, leered as Clara flinched while handing them menus. "Hey, little mouse," he hissed, grabbing her wrist. "You're shaking. Cold." Her skin prickled. She pulled free, but his laughter chased her like an echo. That night, she closed the diner alone. The key stuck in the lock, rain stinging her face, mixing with tears. She didn't hear their footsteps. Mac's hairy hands clamped around her throat. Boyd, giggling nervously, pinned her to the wet asphalt. "Don't rip the dress," Jared rasped. "It's pretty." They dragged her into the woods. Her screams drowned in the wind's roar. The dress snagged on branches, tearing, exposing her skin. She felt sand grinding into her wounds, teeth sinking into her shoulder, something inside her snapping like a twig. The last sound she heard, laughter. The last thing she felt, warm blood trickling down her legs. The earth that rejected her. They found her 3 days later. The dress, now rust-colored, clung to her body like a second skin. The funeral was swift, without a priest. The casket stayed closed, her face unrecognizable. But the next morning, the grave yawned empty. Sheriff Thompson, his face like a beaten dog's, searched the woods. The wind carried the scent of jasmine. He turned, a flash of red between the trees. "Who's there?" His voice quivered. A whisper answered. "You watched too. You saw and did nothing." The next day, Jared called the station, screaming that his trailer's walls were screaming. When the sheriff kicked down the door, the air reeked of iron. Jared sat in the tub, eyes gouged out, fingers gripping a knife. On the wall, written in blood, "Shame." Beside him lay Clara's photo, her face scratched to bloody strips. The scent that devours. Mac drowned his fear in whiskey. But even drunk, he smelled jasmine. The fragrance seeped into his lungs, making him cough blood. One night, driving his rig through the woods, the radio crackled. "Did you enjoy my tears?" A voice hissed through static. He swerved onto the shoulder. In the rearview mirror, a flash of red. Mac flung the door open. No one there. Only a crimson petal on the seat. Or a shred of skin. They found him in the cab, wrapped in ribbons of his own flesh. Doctors couldn't explain how he'd still been breathing. His final words, "Eyes, she took the eyes." As they wheeled him away, a nurse swore she saw crimson silk crawl from his chest wound and vanish. Hide and seek with death. Boyd hid in an abandoned church, barricading the door with crosses. But holiness didn't stop her. He woke to the sound of dripping. Blood rained from the ceiling, pooling into her face. "I didn't want to," he screamed, clutching a crucifix. "They made me." Clara emerged from the dark. Her dress writhed like worms, her hair tangled with barbed wire. "Liar." Her voice screeched like rusty hinges. "You laughed." He ran, tripping over pews. Behind the altar, crimson ribbons seized his throat, squeezing slowly. When the sheriff found him, Boyd's eyes were replaced with black buttons. On his chest, carved, "Thanks for the dress." The flame that never dies. The Lonely Spoon burned on Halloween. Firefighters swore they saw a woman dancing in the flames. Arms spread, dress merging with fire. Now, the ruins are avoided. But sometimes, travelers hear a bell, the one that hung above the diner's door. Laura, the sheriff's daughter, once dared to approach. In the ashes, she found a charred photo, Clara in her white dress, smiling. But when Laura flipped it over, blood scrawled, "Your turn. The eternal return." In Blackwater Creek, children play red dress. They draw a chalk circle, and whoever stands center becomes Clara. The game ends when someone screams, "She's behind you." On Highway 17 at night, a girl waves. Her dress glows crimson under headlights. If you stop, she'll climb into the back seat and whisper, "Have you seen 3 men? They must pay." Those who agree to help vanish. They're found weeks later, pupils burned away, smiles frozen in endless terror. Vengeance woven from tears. Clara's story isn't about a ghost. It's about how pain becomes flesh and fear becomes fuel. Her dress, once white, now drinks the sins of all who see it. If you ever smell jasmine in an empty room or hear whispers in the dark, don't look back. She's already near. And her vengeance, it will never be sated.